All right, everyone. Welcome to this new moon / partial solar eclipse Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for July 12th and the 13th of 2018. All right, so this part of the week, new beginnings in Gemini. If you were expecting me to say Cancer, be sure to check out the link down below. We are using the actual size of the constellations called true Sidereal Astrology. All right, so Gemini, the twins, time of embodying these new qualities of essentially flexibility, adaptability, and a willingness to learn in life and make mistakes in life, which helps us learn and cultivate a bit of that flexibility. So new beginnings here with this. We do have a kite formation forming with the new moon, so it will be opposite Pluto. I think there is some depth that's being brought into the surface here, maybe being reflected from our environment that we can incorporate and integrate. The acceptance of depth and the deeper things in life. And a grand trine, actually, part of that kite, of course. So Jupiter and Neptune, which already have been trining each other this year, part of this as well. So maybe a bit hopeful or inspired, maybe even seeing how things ebb and flow and how potentials ebb and flow with this as well. All right, so let's look at all of this here in more detail when we return. All right, so here's the chart for this new moon / partial solar eclipse. The exact time will be at 23:10 Eastern time on the 12th. All right, so here's the chart, new beginnings, new moon / partial solar eclipse, somewhat close to the north node, not very close at all. The closer to the north node or the south node is, the stronger the eclipse. These solar eclipses we have this year are going to be very far from the north node. In fact, about as far as it can get. So a partial energy there we'll talk about with the north node in Cancer. But generally, as all new moons are and all solar eclipses really are, is about a time of new beginnings. So good time to be acclimating to this new energy collectively, seeing what new might be shaping up in our life. If it does have to do with the solar eclipse side of it, a new life path direction, again, at least partially, right? So sort of slowly but surely as we get into next week, developing these new qualities. So the qualities are of Gemini, the twins, which if you look at the constellation, right, the twins, it's kind of this reflection energy, right? Gemini represents everything that is sort of reflected back to us in terms of what we put into life. Right? So our thoughts, for example, Gemini is very much about developing a bit of this curiosity, willingness to learn, and the thoughts, being observant of the thoughts that we put in, really do yield the results or the manifestations of those thoughts, right? So great time to be aware of our thinking patterns, things like this. Also our communication, right? So same sort of thing, thoughts being communicated, right? When we are interacting with others, sharing ideas, is there that reciprocity? Is there that willingness to learn? What we communicate, how is that being manifested back to us, right? So other types of new beginnings having to do with likely communication on some level. So with this, I think a really good archetype to embody with Gemini is the archetype of the fool, right? The side of ourselves and the side of life that's willing to make mistakes. Right? Because it's through willing to make mistakes that we're willing to learn, that we're more open to learning, right? And we're able to grow and develop. So great time, I feel like, to see if there's anything in our life or just generally to embody these qualities of the fool, which is willing to make mistakes, willing to learn, willing to treat life as a place of learning. And through that flexibility, that lightheartedness, right? Twins, lighthearted, that curiosity, that flexibility and adaptiveness. And these are the qualities Gemini really helps us develop. So being light on our toes, being willing to shift and move because we're not too attached to one particular, way of doing something or mode of thinking. And we're open to the next thing or the next lesson or the next experience that's going to help us learn something or help us grow and develop through having that sort of lighthearted, flexible approach to it. So great time to, again, develop these qualities. We could notice some new beginnings in our life shaping up with this, of course. And down in the comment section, I will put which houses this is going to be for each of the signs. So if you do want a more detailed look in terms of what the new beginnings might be pertaining to for you, do check that out. You can look at that for your sun, moon, and ascendant sign. And again, it is your sidereal signs. All right, so along with this, let's talk about, first of all, the Mercury side to it. Since Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, the dispositor of this new moon, suggesting that it's likely through Leo that we are going to be cultivating this sort of curious, adaptive type of energy. So great time to get in touch with that Leo energy as well, and it'll likely be through it. So through self-expression, through cultivating our passions in life, right? What are we passionate about? What do we enjoy? What do we find fun, entertaining? And what do we find creative, right? How can we invoke a bit of that inner creativity? So it's likely through that self-expression we will be developing this sort of adaptive energy. And not to mention Venus in Leo, it's a great time to be enjoying, actually, this type of fun, entertaining, creative energy, and in our relationships as well. All right, so let's talk about the North Node side to it. Even though the new moon is quite far from the North Node, it is a partial solar eclipse. So let's take a look at Cancer. This side to it, we've had the North Node in Cancer this year. This new life direction we've been embodying in 2018, having to do with getting in touch with our feelings, getting in touch with what our emotions are telling us, our body is telling us, our past is telling us, right? It's been this sort of new energy of developing this sort of reflectiveness and inner guidance, inner listening, and uncovering, right, what our body has to say, which is through feelings, right? What the past, uncovering the past or our roots and learning more about that. So the North Node is a lot like that Gemini energy in the sense that it is about learning. So anything that you can do to continue with, now another step in the right direction with this partial solar eclipse, having to do with willingness to learn about this type of stuff and to just be flexible with it as well. Right? That it's new. All of this sort of new development of emotional understanding, of reflection, of also creating protective environments for ourselves and others. This type of Cancer energy is fantastic at this time. So we could notice 6 months new beginnings associated with that Cancer energy, and of course also with the Gemini energy. All right, so let's take a look at some of these aspects. As you can see here, there's this slight kite. It's not, depending on where you set the orbs, it's not an exact kite, but it is nonetheless, you can see here, this kind of kite formation with Pluto being on the opposite side of it. So this is likely going to be the most important aspect with this new moon. It does have to do with integrating the deeper dimensions of Pluto. Pluto is everything that's what you might consider more of the unconscious and the deeper aspects of ourselves and of life. So with the opposition, sometimes this energy can be reflected back to us from our environment and possibly from other or relationships. So it's about essentially accepting these deeper dimensions of life, and really all dimensions of life, right? But with Pluto, it's usually the deeper ones. So as they come up, accepting what does arise, whether we're observing it or it arises within us, that might be deep, might be things we've brushed under the rug, might be fears, inhibitions, these types of things, that through the acceptance, it empowers us, right? When we rise above the fear, so to speak, or we accept the inhibitions or whatever, we rise above them. And it's through that Pluto really helps us transform, and in Sagittarius, see a whole new perspective. That's what Pluto and Sag has been helping us do. So this whole new perspective shift with Gemini, it is a time of now getting into this practical energy, being willing to learn, right? Get into that more immediate, adaptive, physical sort of state. But with the opposition from Sagittarius, at the same time, broadening our horizons. Remembering that, how we perceive things and our perspective on things really does manifest our reality, as does the thoughts, as does the more immediate perspective or the practical perspective. So balancing the possible with the practical, the abstract with the tangible. Really good energy to work with this new moon. So speaking more on that, though, we do have, of course, as part of the kite, a grand trine, which is a trine up to Jupiter and Neptune, which have already been trining each other here in 2018. So I think this is another step in the right direction, having to do with if you felt this year a bit, on some level, like there's potentials. If you felt a bit inspired about potentials and maybe even dreams, with Neptune. So great to continue to develop this energy, this open-mindedness, hopefulness about potentials, that again, shifting of perspective which both Jupiter and Neptune really help us do, and seeing that ebb and flow of life, right? That things come and go, that, as we are open to new experiences, opening our horizons, but also present and open to the now moment of what is, we kind of see the synchronicities, we see the opportunities, we see the potentials that kind of manifest from that. The more we're willing to go with the flow and even adapt, again, and be flexible, which is very much associated with both of these planets and, of course, the new moon in Gemini. All right, so yep, and this is from the air houses, so great time to really be, I think, still connecting in relationships. Jupiter just went direct this week, so great time to be implementing any new insights we've gained about reciprocity, give and take in relationships, also about the collective, right? So any things involving the collective we can be more present with and accept and surrender what's outside of our control with can help the flow come in. And then, of course, the new moon in Gemini, this practical, willing to learn, be flexible type of energy being cultivated. All right, so that's the new moon in a nutshell. Let me go ahead and pull up the transits. So for those of you who do want to see the exact lunar times for some of these transits, we do have some energy coming off of yesterday's Venus trining up to Uranus. So on, Thursday, as we gear up for the new moon, it is good to sort of still do that clearing, create some space for the subtleness, right? This is a low energy time of the lunar cycle, but also to continue to try new things, enjoy some spontaneity, some change with Venus trine Neptune. And then as we get into the weekend, into Saturday, Venus trines up to Saturn. So after the new moon, after these new beginnings, subtle new beginnings, this bit of probably groundedness and stability that we could be enjoying. And quite possibly in those relationships, bit of stability there, or just the things we're enjoying in life, just feeling a bit grounded with them. All right? So everyone, have a fantastic new moon. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for all of your support with the channel. And I will see you all on Friday for the weekend forecast. Take care.